don't know anyone else who's done that, who's just been like, you know what, I want to make a book about pornography for children.
You know how good things can come out of bad things? She called me up one evening, told me this story of how her oldest son, who was 17 at the time, had been molesting his younger brothers and sisters. With a large family, went to church every Sunday, homeschooled, trying to do all the things, right, to protect the kids. Something had gone terribly wrong. For everything else, we educate our children, and we have to do the same thing for pornography.
Hey, you're listening to the Outside of Sunday podcast. I'm Christa, and here you'll find genuine conversations and inspiring testimonies, as well as biblical encouragement on how to live your faith in and outside of Sunday. Hey, Outsiders, welcome back to the podcast. It's Christa here, and today I'm sitting with, across the world with Kristen from Defend Young Minds. Welcome, Kristen. It's so great to have you with us.
I'm so glad to be here with you on your podcast. I love your work, and thank you for inviting me.
It's such a pleasure to be talking to you. As I said before we started this chat, I've been such a big fan of Defend Your Minds, the Good Pictures, Bad Pictures books for a long time. And I was one of those people who was telling all my friends, you have to get this book for your kids. Whatever you do, buy this book for your kids. And I've been lending it out and saying, please, it's such a fantastic resource. And I'm so excited to hear a bit more about the journey behind that. But for those who don't know anything about Defend Young Minds, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, could you just tell us a little bit about what it is that you do and how, I suppose, that all started for you?
Yeah, well, just to start, what we do is we really want to just take parents by the hand, and it's kind of a nerve-wracking thing to talk about, pornography. I mean, I've talked to many social workers and counselors and therapists that were petrified to have this conversation with their own children. So what we're trying to do is make that conversation easier to have earlier. Okay, so easier conversations earlier so that children have a protection, have a defense against this, and are not caught off guard. So that's what Defending Minds do. We help parents, get the facts, arm the kids, and continue those conversations. We have articles, we have guides on our website, we have a social media outreach. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, X. And so I think we're on Pinterest too. I don't know. Anyway, we are out there. So that's what we do. So you want to know how I got started in this crazy journey, right?
I would love to know, because it just seems like, no one, I don't know anyone else who's done that, who's just been like, you know what, I want to make a book about pornography for children. Now, in saying that, I'm not saying it's a bad idea. It is a fantastic idea, but it must have been such a, a really light bulb moment to even think about that. I don't know anyone who's done that before. So tell us about how that light bulb moment came and the start of the journey.
Yeah, well, you know how good things can come out of bad things? Well, this is a case of that. So I moved to a new town, met a new friend, and she called me up one evening and told me this story of how her oldest son, who was 17 at the time, had been molesting his younger brothers and sisters. From the 14-year-old down to the 4-year-old, this was a large family. Went to church every Sunday, homeschooled, trying to do all the things, right, to protect the kids. And, something had gone terribly wrong. So she told me the whole story, the fallout, what they had to do with this older boy. And when I woke up, we talked to 1:30 in the morning.
Right.
And when I woke up the next morning at 6 a.m., because I always wake up by 6 a.m., it doesn't matter how long I stay up. So I woke up, and the first thought that came to my mind was a thought about how will we warn the young children? Because obviously pornography had been a part of this young man's journey that it fueled the sibling sexual, trauma. And so where could I find a book? I think there's a book for
The
everything,
resource,
right?
right? Yeah.
Right. Where's the resource that I could purchase and give to this poor mother? And so I went online looking, thinking, oh, there's going to be a couple of things I could buy for her. Nothing, nothing. Now, this was back in 2011, I think, all the way back 14 years ago, 15 years ago. And so I started to look, couldn't find anything. And I just had this crazy idea that maybe I could write a book. Now, I majored in English literature. So, I mean, how hard could this be? It's kind of funny. I thought it would take me a few weeks over the summer, right?
Easy as.
Yeah, it took me easy. Took me 3 years because you're right. How do you write a book, an age-appropriate book for children about pornography that will give them a defense against it without talking about sex and without making it so uncomfortable and just off, right? And it's a very, so after consulting with a lot of people, experts, and just starting to, and obviously, I'm a person of faith, so I involved a lot of prayer, and there were many people that came and helped me with this. I couldn't have done it with just this brain, believe me. Many brains helped and much inspiration. So, that was the beginning of Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, Porn Proofing Today's Young Kids, which is for kids 7 to 11, although, the principles can be used for adults, and many therapists actually use it for adults. So those are timeless, but honestly, you're not going to, sit your 19-year-old down on your lap and read them this book, but you can use it as a guide to review. But that was the beginning. And then I had people come to me, parents, asking me, are you going to write a book for younger children? And I'm like, what? It felt like a little bit of a punch to the gut because what? And then I look around and so many young children are on iPads and tablets and screens and their parents' phones. And I'm like, okay, I get it. So we wrote Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior. And guess what? We just came out. So that was in 2017. And we just came out with the second edition.
Wow.
So this has improved text, improved advice at the back, and some new illustrations. So be looking for that. It's on Amazon. And I think that we will also, and I know you're in New Zealand, so we will be working to get it down there as well.
Amazing.
So that was the journey, and just been trying to follow inspiration ever since, and just keep going. The world has changed a lot since I began this book. It has changed so much. And so there are new threats all the time, and parents really do need to keep up. It's daunting, but I think that's where Defending Young Minds helps with our articles every week, and you can get more and more help. So kind of a shameless pitch here to go and sign up for, Defend Young Minds and subscribe so that every week we don't spam you, but just give you good advice, the best that we can find from the experts every week.
No, it's a fantastic resource. And I first was introduced to Defend Young Minds through Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior, which I got for my children because I didn't want to make pornography or the sex talk into this big, scary thing that I was
Mhm.
afraid of. And then when we had the conversation, it'd be awkward and uncomfortable. Bless my parents, like we just kind of had one conversation, me and my mom, an intentional conversation, but it was awkward. And, she was so sweet, but I was like, oh my goodness, all at once. It is so wonderful to be able to drip feed your children this information as they grow. Pornography is not a scary word anymore. When you're reading it
Mhm.
to your children, that age appropriate version, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures Junior, they learn what that word pornography means. They learn that basically it does mean a bad picture, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And then as the children grow, they can move on. My son is 11. We read him the next version up when he was 9 together. Do you know what? He loved it. We did it that it was once one chapter an evening, and we read it over like a week, and he was so excited because he got to stay up a little bit later than his siblings, and we would have a little hot chocolate or something, and we would read that chapter by chapter, and he wanted to keep reading, and we'd say no, like let's sit on this chapter. So you've done a fantastic job, Kristen, like amazing. So thank you so much for this resource. As you can tell, I am a super fan, but I would love to just communicate to those people listening who might be thinking, what is the big deal? How even is pornography linked to sexual abuse? They might even think it's a bit of a stretch to say that boy, that 17-year-old abused his siblings because of that. I don't think people understand how key it is and how much pornography can impact and lead to sexual abuse. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's just start with the story of that young man who, at 17, was molesting his younger brothers and sisters. And, they don't do this maliciously. It's like, this is fun, this is pleasurable, and I have these younger, more vulnerable children to do it with. And it's wrong. But I talked with him maybe 6 years later, 7 years later, and he had gone through a program in our state here in the United States. Some states have programs for these kids. And in his cohort, a group of boys that had all been offending on other younger children, all of the boys. Now, the one that I knew, the one that started me on this journey, he had actually had a hands-on perpetrator from another child. Um, but all the other 8 boys, they had not had a hands-on perpetrator. It was porn. Porn was the perpetrator, and it got them to go and perpetrate on other children. So we started to see this. We started to hear stories from people that, women even, that said, I started looking at porn, and then when I get together with my cousins, we started doing the same things. And when she got caught, this one woman, they were certain she had a hands-on perpetrator,
Mm,
and she didn't.
wow,
But nobody thought to ask her about pornography.
wow.
Nobody thought to ask her about that. So people are still like not making that link, but all sexual exploitation is linked.
Mm,
So let me tell you another story about, you were talking about, well, can, this lead to, so we know it can, and I have many other stories, but I also have a very hopeful story. Um, and that is that when you teach your children to reject pornography and you teach them exactly how and why, and you give them instructions, they are safer from sexual abuse, partly because pornography is the number one grooming tool of a predator, right? Because it's great. I mean, it teaches kids, what to expect, it breaks down barriers, it normalizes. Um, child sexual behavior, does all these things. And so that is one of the reasons that a perpetrator will show pornography, to a child, whether it's a family member or a neighbor or some other older child. So, one of the stories that I like to tell, and I have permission to tell it, is a woman had read Good Pictures, Bad Pictures to her 6-year-old boy. And they were invited to a friend's house, perfectly safe environment, they thought, to have dinner. Well, the toys had been temporarily stored at the bottom of the stairs that went to the basement. And so the kids were told, run down the stairs, grab a toy, and come back up. So he went down there and he was obviously left alone. And, some kids just have to really think about this. Which toy is going to be the best, right? And so as he was down there, up walks a man with the phone and shows him gay porn on this phone. Hey, look at this. Well, this young boy knew, number one, first of all, he recognized what it was. That's pornography, right? And he also knew and had been taught from the book that no one should show pornography to a child. Mm-hmm. So what did he do? He used the can-do plan and he ran upstairs and he told his mom, and he got himself out of a very difficult situation. And, that man was renting the downstairs. Nobody thought that he would ever come and go. But from his point of view, this is a child that's a friend of the children in that house and would be available. And so, yeah, so we wish we didn't have to task children with their own defense, you need to defend yourself against these predators, but they need to have a certain amount of information so they can participate, because that family wouldn't have known anything about it.
And so you said at the beginning, when you were telling that story of the 17-year-old homeschooled Christian family doing all the right things to protect their children, and you can't be everywhere. You can't be everywhere. Right. And then if you do, is that helpful to constantly be holding your hand with 8 years old, 10 years old, so on? It is, and that is why I think your book is so good. It's because it's a defense when you're not able to be the defense, really.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And
it is. You need to teach your children, what a bad picture is, what pornography is, why it's harmful, and what to do when they see it. So a definition so they can recognize it, a warning, so they can reject it, and a plan, right? So they know exactly what to do when they see it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So could you just tell us, for people who haven't read the book yet, so that would be the basic message of the book then, would it? Can you just run us through that, please?
Yeah, sure. So it's the one for older kids as a story. It's a mom talking to her son about, good pictures. Here's good pictures. They're looking through a family album, a photo album. But there's bad pictures too, right? What's a bad picture? Well, this is a bad picture. Picture that shows private parts of people, that shows those parts that we keep covered with a swimsuit. And it goes into more explanation about how you might feel if you see something like that. At least the older one does, the one for older kids. And then it's just a conversation, well, why is it bad? Here's some of the bad things that can happen, but it can become an addiction. And then we talk about the brain, the thinking brain and the feeling brain, and how those brains work together and how they can be hijacked by looking at bad pictures, and how you can protect yourself from those bad pictures and keep your brain basically safe and really to curate, what goes into the brain, to be careful because
Mm.
there's some really bad consequences if you look at this material. Um, and I just want to tell you, we are coming out with a girls' book, a book just for girls,
Right.
where we talk about, they need slightly different conversations.
Yeah.
And so look for that at the beginning of the year, where we talk a little bit more about objectification and erotic literature and some of those things. But the basic idea for both books is, again, providing a simple, age appropriate definition so they can just recognize it. You're not going to give them the whole ugliness, toxic, uh, not at this age, but you just need to give them enough information so they can recognize it. Because let me tell you, if your child sees nudity online,
Mhm.
probably not going to be the Sistine Chapel, right? Probably not going to be the David, probably,
Exactly.
So you probably want to know about it, right? You probably want to know if your child is seeing nudity online. Now, do I think that all nudity is pornography? I personally do not. I look at the David, I look at the beautiful paintings on the Sistine Chapel. I am not feeling sexually aroused. Okay. So we have to know that, but still, we have to give a child just a simple definition and then explain, why it's harmful and that it is harmful, and then give them a plan. So for the junior book, we have the turn, run, and tell plan, and we give little, motions that they can do. We have questions, and I just read this book to my grandsons. My grandsons are 7 and 5. And I'll tell you what they love to look for. They love to look for the cameras. So we've got like hidden cameras in the book, and they were loving looking at those cameras. But what's that?
Yeah, my kids loved that too. They'll try and find the cameras on each page. And that's
Yeah.
something I'd like to just highlight for people as well, is what is the right age to start talking to your children about pornography or your grandchildren? And I suppose the other question too, alongside that, is some people might think that, oh, we don't want to talk about pornography at a young age because they'll become curious and it won't actually be a positive thing. So yeah, how old would
Yeah.
you recommend? And then does that talking at a young age about pornography rouse curiosity?
Those are great questions. Okay, so the perfect age is as soon as your child has any access to the internet.
Mhm.
That's it. That's the answer. So if they have access to the internet when they're 2.5 or 3, and you're handing them a tablet or an iPad or something like that, they need to have a gentle warning because they could see things and they won't know what to do with those things.
Yeah.
Uh, and they won't know. Parents think, oh, if my child were to see anything like that, they would just come running to me right away.
Yeah.
And that is just not true. They've done studies that isn't true. Um, and then, uh, so yes, parents are worried, especially moms, because moms are really good at guilt. Like, we're going to just feel guilty about everything and anything. At least, I'm one of those people. So, what if I warn my child and then they go looking for it and then it's all my fault, right? Well, you could say that about anything that you warn your child about.
Mhm.
Uh, we still warn our child not to run into the street.
Yeah.
We still warn our child, there's a lot of other things we warn them about. Um, so I would say that you have two choices. You can, do the, cross your fingers, right? And hope that your child doesn't see it until you decide to talk to them about it. Um, and most parents are using that plan. And guess what? Not working. not working at all. Um, or you can be proactive and you can start early as soon as the danger is present. And that is whenever they have any access to any device. And I mean, any device that's connected to the internet. Even if you think you have every parental control, everything locked down, you don't. There are back doors, and these kids are good at finding the back doors. I once saw a video, and it's been around for a while, of a kid using a simple art program on an iPad. This kid did like 17 steps and got out to YouTube. And
Wow.
I just sat there dumbfounded, like,
Mhm.
how do these kids remember this stuff? Like I would need to print it out on a sheet. But no, they was just, and then you do this, Mom, and then you do this, and then you go over here, and you do, and they could find that. And there's always back doors for any app.
Mhm.
So even if you don't have a browser on the thing, even it's just really difficult. So I would say that as soon as they have, any, like I said, any access, you need to start warning them. And it is not your fault if they're going to be curious.
Yeah.
The world makes them curious.
Mhm.
They see things. It's out there. It's like air pollution, right? They see it, it's out there. They hear it from their peers.
Mhm.
So honestly, you cannot make this kid more curious than he or she already is.
Yeah.
And the other thing, what's better to walk along with your child and say, you might see these things and you might be curious, and I get that. But let me tell you what I want you to do when you see something like this. And I want you to, then that child is going to feel comfortable. And if you ever have a question, come to mommy, come to daddy. We will answer your questions and we will give you the truth because you won't always find that on the internet.
Mhm.
Um, and so just opening this conversation is very powerful and helpful so that the child will know that they can come and talk to you and you're not going to freak out.
Yeah.
Um, and you're going to be helpful. So that's why I think it's better to be proactive. I don't know. I saw what happened and I've seen what happened, you know, when you aren't proactive.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is there any perfect magic wand that you're going to wave and protect your child and the child will never ever follow their curiosity? No. I wish I could sell that magic wand, but I don't have it. All I can say is for everything else, we educate our children and we try to create a disposition for certain choices, right? And we have to do the same thing for pornography. We can't just stay silent.
Absolutely. And I think the older version of the book has an excellent, like metaphor when you talk in there about the ice cream truck. You know, ice cream truck. Every kid, when they hear those bells going or they see the ice cream truck, they want to go there. But I love the analogy that you have of like a road being in between you and that ice cream truck. And if you just run across the road to get an ice cream, you could be hit by a car, which is something that we teach our kids all the time.
Yeah.
I'm saying, let's look both ways. We don't want to be a pancake, do we, kids? And you warn your children about these things because it is dangerous. And while there is something over there that might look, appealing and something that's exciting, because that's the thing. I think the curiosity comes when it's taboo. The curiosity comes where it's like, oh no, 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 don't, no, 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 let's not talk about it. But if we're open and we say,
Mhm.
yeah, there is this thing over here, and one day that's going to be yours, and you can have it when it's safe and good and healthy. But if you run across the road right now, that's not going to be good for you. Can you talk for a moment
Mhm.
about the harms of pornography? We've talked a bit about
Mhm.
sexual abuse, but can we talk about the other side of it? The potential for
Oh my goodness.
everything like
Yes. And we would, to really cover everything, we'd be here for 2 more hours, but
that.
we're not. Um, So many harms. I think one of the biggest ones, I mean, besides addiction, and any addiction is just so destructive. But beyond that, it creates these sexual templates, these toxic sexual templates, so that, a child learns that violence and sex go hand in hand, right? That's what pornography teaches, that, hair pulling and choking and many other disgusting things and degrading things that I would not ever even say on this podcast, are normal and expected. So they get such a degrading view of sex. And that doesn't just go away. That is in there. That's a first impression, right? So that's why I want you to talk to your kids about sex earlier rather than later, so that you get the jump on pornography, right? But so that can affect, later on their marriage and how they view, the other person. So objectification. And I talk about objectification. When you objectify somebody, it's much easier to hurt them. That's why in every war, the enemy is always objectified. Makes it easier for us to go and bomb them and kill them and whatever. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't defend yourself, but you can see that happens, right? Well, in pornography, women especially are objectified, and then it's much easier to hurt them. And to pair that with, it's sexual violence. So is this what we want our children to believe about sex? That it's violent, degrading, and, they're not going to be very interested. And they're going to not be prepared to have a beautiful, intimate relationship with their spouse when they grow up. If porn is the third partner.
Here's what's coming up in part 2. Their child has been exposed to pornography already. What hope is there for them?
Some of the best people I've ever met are recovered from a porn addiction. Your child's not a bad child. Okay, I want to make that clear. Mm-hmm. Looking at bad pictures does not make you a bad kid. And we actually say that, right, in the junior book. If you're going to read them good pictures, bad pictures, or have these talks about pornography with whatever resource you want to use, and then you're just going to hand your kid a phone, I hate to say this, it's possible the phone's going to win.
Hey, thanks again for listening to this episode of the Outside of Sunday podcast. Don't forget to leave us a comment if something made you laugh or cry or think a little deeper. Please let us know. And as always, sharing is caring, so don't forget to let somebody you know about this podcast. Outside of Sunday is part of the Outsider Network and is made with the help of Inspirational Media.